Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Live Before Lock show for the Sony Open. It's Pga Dfs, and while our alma maters may be facing off in college basketball tonight, my Rhode Island Rams are currently losing to Ben Raza's UMass Minutemen. We're on the same team here tonight. We're going to try and help you win $200K for Pga Dfs this week. So, Ben, college basketball in full swing. We got to love that. We love our teams, but a lot of money to be won this week in our first field event. How you feeling about it?
I feel pretty good. You know, it was nice to get, not the biggest fan of a non-cut, to be honest, but I do like a little warm up and, you know, you got that. Now we get a full field, 144 golfers. Friday cut sweats are back. It's good to get things started.
Yeah, it is. And the problem with no cut events, I guess it's a problem, or depending on which way you go with it. If you decide to pick a big fade, which, again, he looks like he's a fade of yours this week, but
it's always a fade.
Last week, he was a huge fade of mine. I think a pretty big fade of yours as well, and it was Ryan Palmer. And pretty much, if you played in GPBs and played him underweight or didn't play him, you basically didn't cash. And that was my week. That's the problem with no cuts. You can't overcome a situation like that without having people have Ryan Palmer in their lineup and miss a cut or two. You can't really make that up. So it was a really tough week for me in that regard. Were you able to overcome it, or did you find him in a good lineup?
So he wasn't the problem. My problem was Harris English, who was, and that you cannot overcome. You know, when we're talking about missed cuts, obviously after Friday, there's going to be a lot of people that are playing man down or 2 men down or 3 men down. And you can, with a 6-6, you don't need particularly the right permutations, but in a non-cut, you know, the scoring gets so out of whack because, you know, placement points become diluted when it's so easy. To me, it's just not the best format. I know some people are very sharp at that. Not my best format, never has been, probably never will be. But you know what? We got through it. We got some reps, and that's going to be an interesting discussion tonight. What did you want to see from Sentry? Do you take a lot of weight into how they played, and will you be targeting guys that did tee it up last week?
Yeah, I think we've certainly seen Maui translate into Oahu success. There's no doubt about it, obviously with 8 of the last 9 winners. But as you covered in your great premium article, which of course, if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, a great time to do so. You can try our express package for just $2.95 a week, get you in the door and check everything out. But also, Ben, don't forget to like and subscribe, because we're also giving away a bunch of stuff all the time. So you also want to get notified when we have these giveaways. But that brings me into back-to-back winners, which I think is a good transition to talk about who I'm playing from Maui and who I'm not. And first off, we've seen a couple of back-to-back winners in recent years. Brendan Todd did it back-to-back years, obviously, at Bermuda and Mayakoba. Justin Thomas did it at Maui and here. So with Harris English now, his first win in 8 years, as Coolers just told us in our chat. Are you ready to back this guy as the second highest priced golfer? And I think this will spear off the who I'm playing from last week and not. English is not one of them. I am so much more comfortable fading him at 10,800.
Yeah, I mean, so am I. And listen, this is where context matters. Harris English is playing fantastic, and he's a good player. He really is. But when you have a lethal combination of extremely priced and extremely owned, it's very hard for me to get there unless someone is playing so out of their mind. And to me, he is just not that. He'll probably never be that if he's going to continue to be very popular and very expensive. So when we've got guys like Webb, when we've got Hideki, who we'll get to, Berger, Morikawa, I mean, there's just a lot of names up there. And then, of course, Sungjae Im is sub 10K. There is a lot of options besides Harris English this week.
Yeah, there is. And I was surprised. Now, granted, he's playing the best golf out of anybody in this field. That's unquestionable, no doubt about it. But at 10,800, it made it a relatively easy decision for me. You're going to now get super low ownership on Morikawa because Morikawa is sandwiched in between English and Neiman. And by and large, Joaquin Neiman almost did everything he could to win. He played amazing on Sunday. Second straight year we've seen him pop in Maui. First time coming over here, though, I think the game can translate. I don't think maybe it's a perfect golf course for him, but certainly if his irons and putter are in form, he can play on any golf course anywhere.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he's certainly kind of in the bucket of if he brings his A game, especially in a field like this, he's going to be just fine. But, you know, I think at the top, like most weeks, even in a watered down field, lot of starting places, but as win equity is diluted and in a weak field it is, you are certainly not giving up a ton. Whereas when you've got DJ, Rom, JT, and those types, we saw last week, it doesn't mean they automatically win, but it's hard to sacrifice a ton of that. I feel a lot more comfortable being balanced this week.
Yeah, I do as well. That brings me into a next topic. We just talked about Wonky Neiman, and we'll drive down to number 2 here and absolutely pick up a few more players as well to chat about. But I want to talk specifically about Joaquin Neiman, 10,400 on DraftKings, the 4th highest priced golfer. Then you go over to FanDuel, and he's 10,900, only $500 more dollars. And I play maybe not quite as much on FanDuel, but just as much. So players that are focusing on FanDuel or have a good volume over there, is there any reason not to play a ton of Joaquin Neiman, given the fact that he's exceptionally cheap compared to his DraftKings price?
No, I mean, those are things to take advantage of with the various sites. And Neiman is someone, the really good thing, we talked about this obviously last week, huge topic of conversation. If he, even at a pretty expensive tag, if he makes the weekend, all he does is climb. He racks up a ton of birdies. He's very good at padding the stats, getting streaks. So great play. Obviously a lot easier to fit him into lineups over there.
Yep, certainly is. In fact, I saw him a couple of times have to get him in that lineup because at 10,900, he was just a perfect price in there. I like him over Kevin Kisner, who's right around that price as well. So, all right, a couple of more guys that I want to chat about in this range before we get into the values. We mentioned Colin Morikawa up top, but a guy that both you and I seem to have a pretty good affinity to this week is Daniel Berger, coming in at 10,000 or right around there on DraftKings. Played pretty good last week, but his putter totally evaded him over the weekend. If that doesn't happen again here this week, Ben, I suspect you think he's going to compete for the title.
I do. So Daniel Berger is someone that, he's a polarizing player because I thought he was playing a little kind of above his means. But at the same time, he was hurt, he got healthy, and he had a great stretch in 2020. And it wasn't, it was a guy, unlike some of these other guys, I think it was a little more sustainable. Obviously, when you get on these runs, the putter's going to cooperate. But last week, quiet 10th, lost 4/10 of a stroke putting. So it was just basically did it with the ball striking. And listen, we talked a lot about him. So he's a 2-time winner at St. Jude, par 70 Bermuda. He was a runner-up at Honda, par 70 Bermuda. He has a specific type. I really try to target him at courses that would comp to Sony, and here we are.
Speaking of Honda and playing good over there, a par 70, a guy that lost 8 strokes with his putter last week. If he matched the field, he shoots 25 under. If he only loses 4 strokes, let me try that again. If he only loses 4 strokes, he's at 25 under. If he matches the field, he wins by 4. I'm talking about Sungjae Im, 9,800 this week, winner of the aforementioned Honda Classic last year. If this guy comes here this week and makes half of the putts that he didn't last week, I think he's got a chance to win. I think this course is great for him. I think it's a perfect setup where you don't have to drive the ball perfect. You can rely on that short game and iron play where we know he's turning into a world-class player in that regard.
Oh, there's Sungjae, I think, is going to be the most popular play on the entire slate and the most popular one and done, which we'll talk about later in the show. But there's a reason for that. And it's because he absolutely crushed tee to green last week. And also, what did I just say about Honda? He's the champ at Honda. He won it in 2020. So if you're looking for the comp course, it's Sungjae Im. He's well-rounded game, Bermuda preference. There's only one thing to not like, and that's the ownership. But I'll overlook that. If I had to pick a winner, it would be him this week.
So let's talk about ownership for a second between 3 Presidents Cup teammates, all going to be in play here this week. Sungjae Im being one of them, obviously. Abraham Ancer and Cameron Smith, all going to come in pretty highly owned here this week. What do you do when they're all highly owned and they all look like good plays?
Yeah, I mean, I think that looking at the stats, and again, it was only 4 rounds from last week, and just kind of interpreting how I view these guys, Sungjae Im would be where I would go. Now, Chad just brings up, friend of the show, Alex Hahn, brings up a good point. In single entry, he could push serious ownership, and I might try to change it up in something like that, but I'm not going to get away from a play just because he's going to be popular. I think he checks a ton of boxes. I'm much higher on him than I am the other 2 that we just mentioned.
Yeah, and Jeff Ulrich on the PGA DFS First Look show on Mondays with me mentioned that, and take this with however you want to, but I thought it was interesting. It looked like he lost a little bit of weight. He's a little bit of a heavier set guy, Sung Jae is. Looked like he lost weight. Looks like he's in really good shape, hitting the ball much further. So just thought I want to bring that up really quickly. So of the other two, Cam Smith and Abraham Ancer, if you can only get one, Ben, who are you going to?
It would be Ancer just because I trust his ability to drive the ball a little more. Cam Smith, listen, he's an interesting guy because he was playing so well to close the year. We saw that at the Masters, just incredibly impressive. Obviously, I'm sure he didn't want the break. Now we'll see if he can sustain that type of form. But Ancer is someone that I think we all know the talent, and he can drive the ball, which I think is a little more important than most. Like Sergio, there's some other guys we're going to get to. I'm going to target some of these guys that are just going to gain off the tee.
Yeah, and Ancer, I think he might have led the field in driving accuracy last week, or was very close to leading the field.
He had a weird day.
Yeah, did he have one weird day out there?
He lost a ton of strokes putting, and he was all over the green. It was just like hit and miss. I just had it. Let me pull it up for the people, because that's what we do. Abraham Ancer, he gained 6.7 strokes putting, but he lost 4 around the green, and then he lost 2.5 off the tee, which is extremely atypical. So Ancer is just someone, I throw that out. He's going to get back to business and start gaining off the tee.
Yeah, and actually, this is a really good segue because I wanted to talk about the strokes gained off the tee numbers from last week. But before I do, we go into our low owned value section, which I'll kick it off with this player that I want to talk specifically about. I want to make you guys aware, if you don't already know, about our odds shopper tool. And Ben, this is a really great tool that we have at Awesemo. It allows you to shop all of the best odds for almost every single sport out there. For PGA specifically, you can shop outright winners, top 5, top 10s across all of the sports books, all of the, of course, United States legal sports books that are available. So it'll help you find the best line. Of course, it'll help you track bets as well. So check that tool out at Awesemo, oddshopper.awesemo.com. So the first guy I want to talk about is Brendan Todd. And the reason why I want to is you brought up a great point with Abraham Ancer, lost some strokes off the tee, as did Brendan Todd, but both of them hit 85+% of their fairways. So what happened was last week, because you had guys like Bryson DeChambeau hitting at 400 yards, Cameron Champ had a couple of 400+ yard drives, distance took over the strokes gained off the tee numbers last week. Mm-hmm. If you weren't hitting it 350, 330, 340, you were losing strokes off the tee, even if you were hitting the fairway, because the fairways are so wide. So even when Bryson was driving at 420, he was in the fairway. Now, when you compare that to Brendan Todd or Abraham Ancer on the same hole, hitting at 300 in the fairway, Bryson's going to gain a quarter of a stroke more to a half stroke more just on that one hole. So no surprise to see Todd and Ancer not gain a lot of strokes off the tee. In fact, lose a good amount. It's not going to happen this week because there's not going to be any 400-yard drives. There's no severe downhill holes. There's none of that going on. So I think that'll be really mitigated, which turns me into Brendan Todd a lot this week. I think that at 8,200, he presents great value. I know I skipped over a few guys, and the one I wanted to ask you about in this low-owned value is Adam Scott. 9,000, maybe a little expensive on DraftKings. FanDuel, if you're playing over there, much cheaper. But here's a guy who's switching back to the broomstick putter this week. We got a picture identification knowing that. Ball striking looked good, Ben. He's in the Matsuyama bucket. He can't putt.
Yeah, he can't. He just can't do anything around the greens, and it's to be expected. Now, he lost 4.1 around the green, and then he lost 3.1 putting. That's even for him a little ridiculous. Gained 7 with the irons. I like Adam Scott just in general. I think he can lean on the ball striking, and obviously the putting can change. He's also right next to Ryan Palmer, who, listen, he's playing fantastic, but there's no doubt in my mind that Ryan Palmer is a little overpriced and a little over-owned. So it's not to say that you have to go, full fade on him. That's a little dangerous with the way he's striking it. But Adam Scott is a nice leverage right off what is going to be a really popular play.
Right in that range, and he's now trending a little bit to lower owned. I guess, it's a little subjective. And plus, I just want to talk about a few of these golfers in this range. So if they're a little higher owned, I apologize. But Russell Henley, $8,700 this week. Certainly the form has come off significantly. We know he's one of the best iron players when he's on. Certainly strokes gained on the approach this year looks good. But Mayakoba, which is a similar golf course, missed cut last time out. And the form since the Houston Open hasn't been great at 29th or 30th and a missed cut. So for a guy 8,700, I'd rather just eat the chalk and spend 100 extra bucks and get Kevin Kisner.
So would I. First of all, friend of the show, Grimmertown, we appreciate you, sir.
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for that
Thank
super
you.
chat. So Russell Henley is the most expensive golfer in this field who did not play last week, which I found interesting. Everyone above him played. And for me, if there's guys $100, couple $100 more, I would rather go to them. And Billy Ho also played at 8,600. So listen, Russell Henley's approach game at one point was off the charts, just absolutely spectacular. He's a winner. But to me, Kevin Kisner is there. Adam Scott is there. We've already talked about Sanjay, of course. And then there are guys in the lower 8K range. Sergio for me. EVR is there, who I want to get your thoughts on. A lot of guys that we could go to besides someone like Henley.
Yeah, I fully agree with you there. I didn't need to. I felt like Kevin Kisner at $100 more was in better form. Billy Horschel's irons are struggling. Off the tee looks great. He's a good putter, so I didn't mind going there. But the first guy that I clicked in 8,500 to 9,000 range, or in this range, was Zach Johnson. Here's a guy that has had a career resurgence. I talked about it on Monday a little bit with Jeff. And he kind of fits this mold of like Harris English and Brendan Todd of a career resurgence late in their career. Now, Johnson, I think, is a little older than both of these, but 8,500, I think he's a fair value. I think he's a good target for cash games this week. Him and Kuchar, I think, are both pretty good. I don't think they're going to miss this cut here this week. So good cash game targets. However, they're also going to be relatively low owned, but for GPP targets, I would rather go down to all four of the guys from 8,300 to 8,000. In fact, Ben, I can even say five guys: Garcia, Todd, Griffin, Howell, and Van Rooyen. I like all of them a lot. I have more affinity toward Brendan Todd and Lanto Griffin. I think they both have had success here and both played pretty well last week. But Eric Van Rooyen's going to come in about 1% owned. Does that interest you, or does the Masters withdrawal still kind of give you some tentativeness in playing him?
No, because he went over, got some reps in Europe and whatnot. And EVR is someone that I brought this up kind of yesterday. When we look at what we've seen from him over here, it's been in WGCs, it's been in majors predominantly. He's got maybe a handful of starts outside those type of tournaments. The Sony Open is none of those, obviously. So this is a chance for him to get some reps at places that maybe are a little more competitive for him. So at 8K, we've seen him at middling price tags at places like the Memorial, at Honda, at Genesis. I don't put the Sony in that category. So I think this is a good spot coming in cold before people have a chance to react. And I will definitely buy him in tournaments.
And I'm going to have to say, let's bump up the likes, because our chat is just, they're so astute and they know what's going on. EVR, only 2 top 10s in his last 21 starts. Groomertown let us know that. Still a couple of other good top 25s mixed in there, but still the upside seems to be a bit limited. But now he's on tour. He'll get a bunch of starts. I don't know. 8,000, I almost feel like I'd just rather play another guy that's playing out of the same category, William Gordon. They almost seem like they have similar games there. They can get hot and cold off the tee. I don't know. I feel like they're almost similar players, but I guess obviously time will tell on that one. All right. Do you have anybody else above 8K before we get into our favorite section that you want to chat about for a bit?
No, I think that, listen, Charles Howell.
Charles Howell. Yeah,
he's a guy that obviously he just kind of does what he does on tour. He makes cuts, cashes checks. The win equity is not the best, but he's another cash viable target. He's made the cut. I'm looking at results since 2010 at Sony. He's played every single year, and he has found the weekend in every single one. So that's pretty good. Obviously, he's gained tee to green in all those starts. He is just a very safe, lower variance type play.
A friend in the industry that I used to chat a lot with and is still around quite a bit now, Noto, he told me something from Howell III 5 years ago that has stuck with me. And he said, you play Howell until the Masters. He never misses a cut in these 3 months, it feels like. So cash game purposes, he's an absolute easy target. I in my cash lineup, I made one this week. I didn't put it in a lot, but it had Kuchar, Johnson, and Howell, because I felt those three guys with where their form is, they're going to make the weekend. Maybe they're not going to give us a top 15, Ben, but they are going to make the weekend. Okay. Speaking. Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, nothing. Just that's cash is that's what you're looking for. It's not like tournaments. You don't want to incur risk reward. You just want people to find the weekend.
And speaking of finding the weekend, back in action, our favorite.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, this is my favorite section of the show. It's called the Make the Cut segment. And if you're new to the show, first of all, thank you so much. Give us a like or subscribe on your way out. If you are first-time visitor, this is where Ben and I kind of go a little bit rapid fire. We throw some names at each other. And the first thing we tell you is if they're going to make the weekend. And then secondly, where they're going to end up in the tournament. So it wouldn't be a start to this section and to this year if I didn't ask you about Emiliano Griot right off the bat. I see that you're playing him via your tweet that you put out a little while ago. This guy's actually playing really good. I probably should have put him in the low on value section because he hasn't missed a cut in a little while. I don't think he's going to do it this week here either.
No, he's another guy that's cash viable, to be honest, because he doesn't, unfortunately, he doesn't putt well enough to really get in contention lately. But I mean, just dating back since July, he missed a cut at the Memorial in July, but since then, only one missed cut on tour. Really playing well. He's going to gain tee to green, and he's another guy that OHL, RSM, these type of tracks, he can really excel here. So Griot, sub 8K, fire it up.
For sure. And a lot of these, I see a lot of people asking us in this question, in this area. We'll get to a lot of these. I just saw somebody ask about Takumi Kanaya. I'll definitely talk about him a little bit.
We'll get to him.
Yeah. Mark Leishman, the guy is, I can't play him. I just can't. I know that last week it looked okay, but I'd rather just play Sebastian Munoz. So Leishman has played here a ton, so if he's in any decent form, he'll make the weekend. I think he slides through, but I'd rather play the upside with Munoz, who I also think makes it through. Had a great last 3 days in Maui last week.
So Leishman is someone that I like in the betting market, and I do have a contenders betting video out. Jason also has videos posted, quick videos. That's what we've tried to do for betting, like top fives, favorite sleepers, things like that. So go check those out. Really quick watches, and it can give you some insight into some value. Leishman is out there north of 50 to 1, even bigger than that at some markets. So this is a guy hasn't missed. He's another one like CH3, has not missed the cut here since 2010. Last week for Leishman, lost 5 strokes putting, but the ball striking was good for a change. And that is a positive. I don't mind Munoz. I get where you're going there. I think Leishman is just fine though.
Jason Kochrack is somebody also in this section, maybe had, speaking of bad putting weeks, had a terrible Sunday putting there, and that kind of pushed him down the board. But I think it sets up where he gets back to maybe a little bit better form that we used to see him in. Granted, he pretty much lost through the board last week, which is not something you want to see out of a guy that notoriously is really good ball striking. So that concerns me a little bit. I don't have him anywhere terribly serious, but I did find a slot for him on FanDuel. I think he's like 9,100, so I think I slid him in there, a little easier to get. Nothing on DraftKings for me, but I do think he gets the weekend. I don't think it's a perfect course, but Ben, we've seen him play well on par 70s, right down the street from me at Valspar, almost won there. So he can definitely compete on golf courses like this.
Yeah, Kochrack has been tricky just because he's certainly flashed form and had a great stretch in 2020, impressive year all around. Keegan, to me, is the preferred shot in the dark. They're similar skill sets in some ways. Obviously can get fluky hot with the putter. Don't mind them for tournament. This range is truly loaded for tournament plays. I hate to say that because it's kind of a cop-out, but it's true. When you talk about Kochrack, Keegan, Siwoo, Gooch, Kevin Na, all of these guys, they really fit specific builds, and I think you can go there.
Yep. Keegan was another one that I kind of had highlighted here next. So obviously looks like you think he makes the weekend. It looked pretty good at Mayakoba. So
it's just with Keegan, we know, I mean, the term, full Keegan going, that's a thing. He can implode at any time. You just got to hope that the putter is okay, because tee to green, off the tee, Keegan can really light it up.
Here's a guy that definitely holds a nice special place in my PGA DFS heart. He, sunk that 40-footer against Dustin Johnson to win me a big amount of money. But after his crazy run of consistently good form and scoring well, Brian Harmon, maybe a little bit of regression in his last 2 starts at RSM and Mayakoba. I still have a little bit of him, Ben, but I'm a little nervous that the run is out. He's a new dad, so maybe he's been focusing on family time and maybe wait a little bit on Harmon. I don't think he makes the weekend here.
I'm with you. it's a range that I talked about. The opportunity cost is pretty big because I like a lot of guys. He got squeezed. He's a good Bermuda putter, and he is someone that you've mentioned, he's got some pedigree to him. Form has just been consistent, but it's also been unimpressive in terms of placement points. So I'm going to just kind of go against him, and I don't think it burns you too often, even if he does find the weekend.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good call, although he can light it up with the putter, so it always concerns me. Another guy that has won here and certainly relies on his putter for making money, and that's Patton Kizzire. Played pretty good at Mayakoba RSM through the fall swing. It seemed like the play was picking up. Hopefully the layoff didn't send in some rust into his game. But I think with the good affinity for here, the good feels, and the good recent form, I think Kizzire makes the weekend.
He's another one where I have no problem going to him, but I would prefer Siwoo. I would prefer Griot. I'd even prefer Keegan. So not going to make my lineups, but again, in the tournament bucket if you're playing enough teams.
So this next guy almost feels like this year's Jason Kochrack, Harris English, but he's a little younger than these guys. And he started busting out at the end of last year, making a ton of putts. And we know what happens with that. He came onto the tour as a good iron player. And it's Taylor Gooch. I know it's an interesting one. I don't think he fits the same build as English and Kochrack, who have been around for a while. Gooch has only been around 2 or 3 years now on the tour. But a guy that kind of came out of nowhere at the end of the year last year, playing good golf. Missed the cut at the RSM, but 4th at the Vivint, 5th at the CJ Cup. So a couple of top 5s. Taylor Gooch, 9,300 on FanDuel, 78 on DraftKings. Can he find the weekend here at Wailea Country Club?
So he certainly can find the weekend, but he is not the type of play, in my opinion, that you target to find the weekend, because he's either going to give you, a lot of times I should say, a top 5, a truly competing, or he misses the cut. He's one of those, as you just mentioned. He's got 2 top 5s in his last 4 tournaments, but he's got a missed cut in there. Like he's just not a very consistent player. And the form, I don't know what to make of it. He was a strictly an iron player, and he has gained strokes putting in 5 of his last 6. So a little confusing with where his game is at. But when you have a fluky game, I say this with Fratelli all the time, that's where upside comes in, because he can get hot with the irons. He can get hot with the putter. It can come in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it sure can. So a couple more guys.
Right, though.
What's that?
Do you get him right?
Who?
Gooch.
No, rarely.
Yeah, me neither. That's not good.
I think if I look, I think I might have had him if the CJ Cup was one of those no-cut events, and I likely had probably overweight there because I knew we couldn't get in trouble. I don't think I won anything that week, because that might have even been that was the Jason Kochrack win. So I might have been overweight Gooch, but you and I both know I wasn't overweight Kochrack. So no. I think I'm pretty sure it canceled it out there. Yeah, CJ Cup was at Shadow Creek. Sherwood was.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Week. Yep. So yeah, the Kochrack's basically his home course.
I don't remember. I Men in Blacked myself for that stretch of golf. Like I truly don't remember any of that for obvious reasons.
Using the nebulizer, is that what they call it?
I hit something, but yeah, it was very bad.
All right, a couple more guys as we move down. Carlos Ortiz played awful on Sunday, in that he wasn't playing great to begin with, but it was his first time out at Kapalua. It can be a tricky course, because prior to it, Ben, he was playing like he should be priced with Zach Johnson, Matt Kuchar. At 7,500, I think he actually presents one of the best values in terms of recent form if we throw out last week. Are you able to throw out last week?
Not really. And it's not even, I honestly don't really care that he played poorly last week. It's more that I don't like guys that finish the season hot and then they're forced to break like him. And now we see maybe the form has reverted. I go to his Sony, history. It's not good. Now it's 4 appearances. I'm not going to overreact to it, but he's not really doing anything. And again, it's a very crowded range. Russell Knox is there. Siwoo is there. So although Ortiz, he's shown he can compete and win on tour, I don't have room for him.
Yeah, it's tough. Definitely tough for me to get there this week. I'm not going to lie to you, but because I ended up just going down or going up. I really didn't end up at 7,500 that much. I think I have him on one lineup of my 4 or 5 big dollar lineups, probably around 15% for me. I will tell you, I'm playing him over Kevin Na, who's going to be 15% owned as well. Ortiz is going to be roughly 15% owned, but I'm out on Kevin Na. Kevin Na showed me absolutely nothing. In fact, of everyone that played in the field last week, Kevin Na showed me the absolute least. There's no chance I'm playing him here.
Yeah, Kevin Na was someone that I liked last week. He was more popular than I thought he would be, but he did absolutely nothing. Now, the one thing you can say about Kevin Na is he can turn it around randomly, but I'm not going to bank on a guy in that regard. So although he's always going to have that tournament appeal, he was very disappointing last week at what I thought was actually a pretty good spot.
People are asking me about Doug Gim. We're not quite at that price range, but I've seen him come up a couple of times. We're going to get there. We promise. We don't want to tell you we're not. We will talk about Doug Gim, but we're just going down the price range just to make it easy. A couple of more guys in this range. Mac Hughes lost 95 strokes putting. I decided to finally play him. We knew that was going to happen. I'll throw in Mac Hughes, Matthew Neesmith, Russell Knox. I'll give you a 3-pack there. Who makes the weekend? Who is on a flight home on Saturday morning?
So my favorite's Russell Knox, just because again he has a strict form of courses, and this is it. This is right in his wheelhouse. I will say, as much as I do not like this guy, not that I root against him, he just frustrates me. Mackenzie Hughes losing 6 strokes putting is a true outlier, and people may not dig. That could flip, and if that flips immediately, maybe you can go right back to him. So I have a lot more interest this week than I did last week on Mackenzie Hughes, which was 0. The other guy, that's your territory. He's playing pretty well, but I don't know much about Matthew Neesmith besides the stats, and I'm not sure I'm going to pay that tag when I have other guys that I just know much better.
Seems to be a little bit more popular among the DFS crowd than I think he should be. So I don't play him that much. You know, I understand that we had a top 15 at the RSM Classic. He had good course form there, good course fit. Maybe a little bit of takeover, both seaside courses. I don't know. I don't love it. I would rather play Russell Knox. I would rather play even a guy like Tom Hoagie, JT Poston, who you mentioned as well, both those guys, and Scott Piercy. So Scott Piercy seems like he's going to be the chalk of this range. I'm going to do what I did last week and just fade him because he's going to be, looks like the highest owned below 7,500, or at least one of the top 3 owned. It's going to fade like I did Ryan Palmer last week. So we know that. We got a top 5. Come and get your top 5 bets in on Scott Piercy, everybody. I think he makes the weekend. It looks like he's made 4 or 5 straight here at Wailea, so he does, but I don't think the upside is there. He's a terrible putter. I like Tom Hoagie and JT Poston a lot more, and I think they both get inside the top 30 this week.
So Scott Piercy is a classic situation of you have to know, I think at least, you have to know the lineup that you're building. If you really leverage, I feel really comfortable that he's coming in having made 5 straight cuts, and he's made 6 straight cuts here. So if you're just like, I have a wild lineup, and if I hit this combination, I'm golden. The last thing I want to do is have a missed cut at the bottom. Scott Piercy, he should be good for like, a 30th a lot of the time, and that could get it done. If you're very vanilla and you've built and you need leverage, that is not the place to go. You've just mentioned 2 flyers, Tom Hoagie and JT Poston. I'll talk a little spoiler. I'll be talking about JT Poston towards the end of the show. I have a little more to say on him, but we'll keep that till the end.
Am I allowed to reuse a hot take?
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Because I probably might use this hot take until it actually happens. But
my hot take last week was not good. I might be.
It wasn't good for us, but no. it ended up winning. It ended up being. Well, it depends on how you viewed your actual hot take. It was a non-winner wins, and Harris English was a non-winner last year, so it did fit the bill, even though it wasn't a first-time winner. So it depends on how you viewed your comment. It was terrible for us, but it might have been right. Anyways, we'll get to that in a bit. Keep your eye on JT Poston. How about Kyle Stanley and Stewart Sink? My next 2-pack of golfers that I want to talk about.
All right, let's dig into our good friend Kyle Stanley. So we haven't seen him. He, for obvious reasons, isn't invited to the Tournament of Champions. 46th at OHL was his last. He showed form at RSM and then just kind of vanished. I will take, as much as it's tempting to try to say I'm going to buy early and I'm going to be a genius, I will wait and see on Kyle Stanley. Stewart Sink, I put him in the Kevin Na bucket. I really didn't like what I saw last week. It was not great. Not there. I'd rather play Cameron Davis, to be honest.
That's another guy that I was going to bring up. He was going to be a 3rd pack if I gave you a pack of 3 here. Cam Davis. I I think he's now come down significantly in price. He was finding a nice groove through that Safeway Open, Sanderson Farms, Shriners stretch. A little regression, I guess, in the last 2 starts. Not great golf courses for him, maybe, but I think this week with not a ton of trouble off the tee, good iron play, good around the green play. Cam Davis definitely in play. How about a guy named James Hahn? He's been asked by a couple of times in our chat, and here's a guy that was playing on a major medical and fulfilled it by coming in the top 10 3 straight weeks back starting at the Safeway Open. But the last 2 starts been maybe more typical James Hahn that we're used to, a miscut in T50. So did the reset help him, or is he going to drift away for a little while?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a problem, but James Hahn is one of those golfers, doesn't really need form, comes out of nowhere a couple times a year and really can get in the mix. So when you're talking about a giant field tournament, you see him more up there more often than not at low ownership. Occasionally, the problem again is it's the 7K range is loaded. Like we didn't even talk about Ches. There's just a lot of guys. So I don't think I'm going to waste shares on James Hahn, hoping I get that 1 out of 10 outcome.
3 popular golfers from the past, maybe not so much right now, but you just mentioned Ches Reavie. He's one. Keep your eye on Ches Reavie. The other one that I want to talk about, so it's Reavie and it's Brandt Snedeker, 2 guys that I'm very surprised we're talking about being more than $1,000 cheaper than Zach Johnson or Matt Kuchar for that matter, Ben. That kind of is really surprising to me, given the fact that Snedeker and Reavie have both, played pretty well, at least in years past. So are Reavie and Snedeker at all of interest for you this week?
Yeah, I mean, these are the type of guys, particularly. So Snedeker was really struggling to close the year. He showed no form at all, but he's won at Wyndham. I like that comp. He's a crazy good putter, certainly not a good driver of the ball, which you can get away with here. I don't mind that. I think that Ches is probably the more prudent play just because he's a little lower variance, but Sneds, if you're looking for like the opposite of Scott Piercy in the sense of you're really going to up the leverage, I don't mind that. You could do worse than him in a low 7K range in this field.
Sabatini was the other guy, the fake European, real South African, but fake European. He was the other guy I was going to mention in the top 3. He's not a bad player, and he kind of he's one of those that like he goes away and then he's cheap and then all of a sudden pops off. At the RSM Classic, that's what happened. Top 12, T12, 110 points. Decent Mayakoba T40. So you getting him or the Slovakian not making your lineups?
No, he's not. He rarely makes my lineups. He's just he doesn't stand out. He always is a fringe cash play that I don't get to. His picture's kind of shady. Kind of looks like a lizard, to be honest, but that's neither here nor there. No, Sabs.
Kevin Feige over at Marvel to play Lizard Man here in the next Spider-Man adaptation.
I didn't know Lizard Man they're really reaching. What the hell that's an actual
thing? No, you don't know Lizard? Yeah. Oh God, what's his name? It's
Lizard Man. That's real original.
Is it? I think it's Lizard Man. Somebody.
I wouldn't know. Let me tell you.
But
Lizard Man though, that's a pretty you got to get better than that.
Yeah.
I assume he's a bad guy.
Yeah, he was in the last the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man. That last one. I don't know what they called him. I mean, he was a doctor, so I don't know.
If you are an actor somewhat successful between the age of 20 and 40 and you haven't played Spider-Man, you've got to feel how many guys have played Spider-Man in the last 15 years? Who hasn't played Spider-Man? Everyone.
We got Tobey Maguire, we got Andrew Garfield, we got they're all going to be in the next one
Everyone's
too. So
Spider-Man.
yeah, they're all Miles Morales. They're all bringing them in. They're all going to be in that next movie.
His name is just the Lizard.
Yeah, it's the Lizard, right? Yeah, Kurt Connors, right? Yeah, as Jordan Klein stops in from behind the glass. Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, it's just Lizard. Yeah, it was super original, Ben.
Terrible. God, I really should start. I'm gonna have to talk to
Rory Sabatini, Captain Villain of the Spider-Man comics.
From now on this show, Rory Sabatini will be known as the Lizard. That is Lizard. What we're taking away from the Sony Open here.
I love it. Chalk him up for a top 10. Let's move on to Brendan Steele, a guy who should have won this event last year. Had one of the worst golf shots as a professional golfer on the 18th hole I have ever seen in my entire life. He got the luckiest break on a ruling after he hit the worst shot I've ever seen. Ended up losing in the playoff to Cam Smith, but 7,100. Brendan Steele in play for you this week?
Yeah, I mean, Brendan Steele's another guy. He's kind of on, it's more in California, but he's on the Charles Howell. He makes a lot of money during the swing season, early season, and then kind of tapers off. The one problem I have with Steele is he closed really poorly. Miscut at RSM, miscut at OHL. So I do worry a bit. But again, this is a guy that usually dials it in. He was runner-up here in 2020. Not a bad play in the low sevens. Again, just a really crowded range.
Same price for a 22-year-old budding star out of Japan, and that's the name of Takumi Kanaya. We've seen him twice compete, 41st at the no cut a couple times ago event, and then he missed the cut at the U.S. Open. No surprise there, maybe, for a guy like Kanaya to come over and play in that and just be thrust into it, a little tough. But here he comes, definitely maybe a little bit, certainly a less stronger field. He's got Hideki Matsuyama, probably a guy he looks up to, also playing in the field. So is this the time to jump on the 22-year-old star, or is he going to be another one of those rises way up the OWGR because of the play on the Asian tours, but then flames out on the PGA Tour, like Shugo Umehara, Jenna Watanabe even. Jenna Watanabe played good in a major, but we haven't seen him do pretty much anything else. So is Kanaya going to be that, or is Kanaya going to be the guy that challenges Matsuyama as one of the better Japanese players in the world?
Well, if he is, I'll be late to the party. Haven't seen anything from him, and I'm not going to try. There is something to that. Like Yuta Akita is another. There's been several guys who have really vaulted up the rankings, and consistency, it's just very difficult. Some of them prove that they're incredible players. There's just too many guys. Like Sepp Straka is down there. I think he's a reasonable flyer. Again, I worry a little about his around the green game, but other than that, and these are pretty small complexes, so I'd rather play him than what's this guy's name? Kanayana?
So Takumi Kanaya, I believe. I think I'm pronouncing this one right. I could be wrong. I apologize to Takumi if you're watching this. I apologize. But granted, I mean, listen, we've seen, like you said, Yuta Ikeda is one of those guys that on the Asian tour, he just dominated. Shugo Umehara, I just mentioned, dominated. I think the difference for me between those two and this guy is this guy's 22, and he sat at the top of the world amateur rankings for over a year. So I think that this guy's really got the talent. And since he came on, I mean, his starts since, he came on tour, 5th, missed cut, 7th, 41st, 5th, 1st, 5th. So, I mean, granted, it's playing against Japanese tour players, I understand, but it's pretty good, 7,100. I'll take a little bit, but if you check out my top 5 bets video, this is where I like to go for these young guns. It's to the top 10 market. The reason why? Simple. That's what they're shooting for. That's their goal. They get another start if they come in the top 10. Obviously, they'd like to win, but top 10 earns them another play. That's where I'm going. He's 14-1 in that market. I think that's a good way to pick up some ownership and a little bit of sweat on him. 14-1 is a pretty good price. So if he's got the upside talent, we'll find out pretty quickly. Now, a couple of other guys in this range that we do like, CT Pan and Austin Cook. They tend to get hot around these parts. So CT Pan, good Masters, really good Masters. Kind of came out of nowhere. Looked decent at the RSM and ended up faded. Jumping back on, or are we too early?
No, so this is where there's an actual drop-off, and we appreciate the Bo Hostler super chat, loyal fan right there.
Oh, Bo Hostler's back. I love it. He's not in this field, thankfully,
no,
is he?
He's not here, but this is where, to me, there's a real drop-off, and if I would rather start to creep into the sixes and steal a couple $100. Like, if I have the money, I'm going to go to Piercy, I'm going to go to Poston, and those guys. If I don't, I'll start going, and we're going to get to, like, Malnati, Gim, those guys. I know Austin Cook is in the sixes as well, but to me, not my preferred target in that range.
Somebody just asked you quickly in the chat if you like Brendan Todd. I know we talked about him. I know that I mentioned I really like him this week. I think you said that he was cash viable, right? And definitely if you're rostering good putters, he's the best of them right now, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Todd always is a little tricky because he's going to lose off the tee and he's going to have to gain with the putter. He's not my favorite. Again, I leaned more to like Sergio types up there, which is not Todd. But again, Cash is different.
Opposites,
totally different build.
Yeah, Garcia and Todd are absolute polar opposites, but I think they can both play pretty well here. Garcia seems to be in good form. In fact, Garcia's in good form outside of majors. Major performances are absolutely horrendous since his win at Augusta. But other than that, he's been pretty good. So I do like both this week. Okay, as we move down, now we can talk about my guy, 6,900, and it's Doug Ghim, a guy that's made 4 straight cuts. 3 of those have been in the top 25. The iron play, some of the best on the PGA Tour in 2021. Now, granted, it's only like 4 or 5 events, but his irons look good. His around the green game looks good. Is this the course, Ben, where his off the tee game that isn't that good is mitigated and he's able to really use the strength? Only 1 start here, missed the cut, but it was when he was in bad form last year.
Yeah, so this is, I think, maybe the most interesting guy in the sense that we could look back a year from now and his price could deviate wilder than anybody else. Yep. Doug Ghim could be really good, and we just don't know it yet. He hasn't done it yet. It looked like he started to turn the corner late in last year. Maybe we look back and we say, wow, can you believe he strung together 4 made cuts because his form is gone? Or we could say, wow, can you believe that he was sub 7K here? To me, that's always a buy spot. You can look to him. Absolutely. This is a really interesting range because a lot of people, so we got Carl loves Brian Stewart.
Let's talk about Brian.
I'm always a Malnati guy, and Doug Ghim is right there. So Stewart and Malnati, they're both great putters, particularly on Bermuda. They're not going to be great off the tee, but you just mentioned off the tee can be masked here. So I get the appeal of building to those type of players.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm in for Brian Stewart. I think that he presents upside value at below 7K. I don't know that he's going to make the cut or every time, but still, I'm not going to lie. I don't mind Stewart in this range. The next 4 I want to ask you about before we go deep diving and we can give our hot takes and do our one and done stuff is the 4 golfers that played last week that are all priced at 6,800. Actually, I'm going to do 5. I'll throw in Brian Gay for 6,700. So we got Robbie Streb, Nick Taylor, Michael Thompson, Richie Werenski, and Brian Gay. 2 of those golfers, Thompson and Werenski, scored over 90 points last week. Pretty good showing. I mean, granted, the course was easy, but the course could play again easy this week. Of those 5, are you playing any? And of those 5, who makes the weekend?
So if I had to play any of them, it would be Richie Werenski. Okay. And he is someone, again, he's in the 6s, scored pretty well. And I just kind of like his game a little more for this course. But I'll be honest, in a full field of 144, there was just too many other names down here. We talked kind of at the top. I don't know what you're really like. I didn't need to make room to shove in Harris English, so I didn't have to go down here too often, and that mitigated the 5 guys who were the cheapies last week.
Doug Ghim at 6,900 was my click. I didn't need to add in 2 of them, like you just said. I got balanced. I got Colin Morikawa in with Sungjae Im. That's what I wanted to do. And got those guys and only needed to use Doug Ghim to do that. So totally agree. If I had to pick Michael Thompson, obviously, I think maybe I want to use him more in no cuts because he's showing that he can score when he plays all 4 rounds. So I don't mind Thompson. Werenski, if our buddy and boss Alex Baker was on the show, I think he would tell us that Richie Werenski is the best play in this range. Played him a lot last week and it ended up paying off. He was one of the best values on the board. So for me, it's Thompson, it's Werenski, it's Gay, it's Streb, and then it's the last guy, Nick Taylor. Nick Taylor didn't really do much for me last week, and he wasn't playing good coming in. So he'd be the last of the 5 that I go with. It would be Thompson, Werenski, Gay, and then the last 2, Taylor and Streb. Okay, let's go into our deep dives here. This is going to be anyone below 6,800 that we're going to have a couple of shares of. And if you're a friend of the show, you guys know, and Ben, you certainly know, I cannot quit William Gordon. I just can't do it. Came in 3rd at TPC River Highlands, another par 70, 7,100 yards. So whatever, I'll just, for that reason only, he's going to get 10% for me. Plus he's like, I don't know, 40 to 1 on a top 10. Yeah, I'll bet that too. Why not? I'll throw some money away.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about Will Gordon is that we just don't know.
We don't know where he's going to end up. We have no idea.
We have no idea. Like these guys, like I said, Taylor Gooch is a perfect example. You would have told, and I would have said, well, this is a guy, he's going to be a pure ball striker and he can never putt. Now we zoom out. That might not be true. These guys, they find form, they lose form. And so we don't know what Will Gordon's all about just yet. Your Will Gordon is my Lahiri. We do know what Lahiri's about. He's got a little more seasoning. He's got a bigger sample size. He's playing pretty well though. 4 straight made cuts, 11th at Bermuda, 6th at Corrales to close the year. I don't mind him on shorter tracks. And again, this is where we're talking about deep flyers. You don't need a lot to get over on these guys. And that's the tools, using Alex's projections, using that ownership. That's how powerful that can be, because you don't need to have 30% of a guy. If he's going to be 2%, you can get leverage with, 8%, you get 4x. So that's what I'll be doing with these type of plays.
Yeah, I had a tough one maybe. All right, I told a little fib. I apologize. Getting Colin Morikawa and Sung JM, I did need to use two guys below 7K. Doug Gibbon was my first click. Lahiri was my second click. Yeah. I'm going back and forth between Lahiri and Brian Gay. Talk to me about this. They seem similar type players. Did Gay just not do enough for you last week to pick him over to Lahiri, or do you think Lahiri is maybe just better suited for this course?
Yeah, for me, the thing about Brian Gay is just we kind of know what we're getting. He's an incredible putter. His ball striking is bad. And when I'm down here, I'm in large field tournaments. I'm trying to win 100K. I'm trying to beat 50,000 people. To me, Lahiri is more prone to do that. He may be more likely to miss the cut, but when he doesn't, he pays me off bigger, and the equity is better on a guy like that, rather than hoping that Brian Gay gets through and comes in 47th, and then I still probably am behind the 8-ball.
You know what we like about Lahiri too is his irons have been consistent, and his around the green game has also been very good. So if you listen to Alex last week talk about how when he did a deep dive into the strokes gain data that I had sent him, he found that golfers that were both good at on the approach and around the green had a lot less volatility than those that didn't. So I like that sentiment going for Lahiri this week. I did click Lahiri's name over Gay in that lineup. I just kind of felt that same thing that, Gay got his win. He got that free paycheck last week in Maui. Of course, he wants to play good or else he wouldn't be here. But I don't know that he's as motivated because Lahiri, I believe Lahiri's not even on the full tour right now. I believe he's playing under a major medical, something like that.
Yeah, some type. Again, status is always a little murky. I do know these starts obviously mean a lot. And he's playing good. He's flashed some form. But you got to just be careful with these. My biggest thing as we go, we're going to talk some one and done and hot takes. Have a reason. I really preach that. Don't just play someone down here, play someone down here. Do it because you can get Webb and Berger or whoever you like up top.
Morikawa, Berger, whoever. I mean? Yep. Neiman, Berger. Yep.
That's really important. And I'm doing that in some spots, and I feel okay rolling the dice.
Yeah, Lahiri's playing out of the 2018-2019 top 125 FedEx Cup, top 2019 top finishers from Korn Ferry. So it's actually not a good spot. Same one as Doug Gibbon and Tyler McCumber. Both those guys are moving up the list, but still not a good category. They don't get in good tournaments like Waste Management. Lahiri won't have a chance at that unless he starts playing better. So, you want to play in those. I mean, granted, Sony Open may matter just as much as the Waste Management, but when the season starts to pick up and you get those good tournaments, starts are few and far between. So if he wants to have a job for, the bulk of the 7 months out of the year, he's going to need to pick up his play. Certainly like that call on Lahiri. Okay, a couple of more deep dives that I had listed. Luke List, 6,600. Listen, he's just a talented player that is definitely out of form, or at the end of last year certainly was. I'll have a couple of shares. JJ Spawn was the guy I wanted to bring up with Luke List because I know you like to play Spawn. 7,600 on FanDuel, really cheap on DraftKings as well. I think 6,500. Pretty good on and around the greens, pretty good approaches, good success here. Not good success, mild success. I think he's made a couple of cuts at least in a row.
Yeah, JJ Spawn, again, really disappointing close to the year. RSM and OHL are two courses that he should thrive at, 59th and 65th. So I'm not super high on him. Luke List, you could just play on pedigree just because he's shown talent, but he's in no form, kind of like Keith Mitchell, to be honest. Yep. One last guy, and then I'm done. Kramer Hickok, I've been impressed with in spots. I really liked him at Bermuda, came through with an 8th place finish, followed up with a 58 at Houston. You could do worse than Kramer Hickok if you're really in a jam.
The other one I'll say that played well at a seaside course, and again, it's Pacific. I will be the first to tell you that I'm likely reaching when I say this, but at Corrales, he came in second. Next week after that, Sanderson Farms, he came in sixth. I'm talking about Tyler McCumber. Decent. I think he popped up on it as a decent course fit for me. I'll have a couple of shares because of that. Wanted to bring him up as well. So now let's transition into our one and done here. But before we do, I'll bounce back and I'll just check through the chat. It looks like what's Neiman's ownership looking like? Somewhere around 13 to 15. What's our thoughts on Munoz? I love Munoz on DraftKings at 7,800 this week. Think he's more expensive on FanDuel, which is the flip of last week. Brian Harmon, both Ben and I are mildly interested in, not really interested in. We would rather go. I know Ben talked about a couple of guys that he'd rather go to in that range. I would rather go to Munoz myself over Harmon this week. Ben, did I miss any there before we get into our one and done?
No, I think that covers it. And listen, obviously this tournament's in Hawaii, so we're going to have some time. I know Jason will be hanging out. You get in our premium Slack. He'll be answering some questions. If you're not in, you definitely should be, but you can also hit us up on Twitter. Like I said, we want you as part of the community. We're growing the sport, and we appreciate everyone. North of 200 for the Sony Open. Let's talk a little one and done, and then give some hot takes.
Yeah, great one and done tournaments this year. Your buddy Pat Mayo and the Mayo Cup, probably the most notorious one. Really good. I love the system that they have. What they're using for FanDuel. It's very nice. It's I got to be honest. I haven't been into one and dones, but the system that they have and what they're using, it's very nice. So I read your article there, which you're doing an article each and every week, giving people about 4 options, giving a top end, bottom end, and a couple middles. It seems like you and I are leaning the same person this week. It looks like we're seeing the same type of value. And I don't think this guy's ready to win a major, so I think it's a perfect spot to use him. And it's Daniel Berger this week. I want to save somebody like Colin Morikawa for a major because I feel like Morikawa, we've already seen him win a major. We know he can compete at those tournaments. Want to save him for the big money events. Webb Simpson, I'm going to use him at the Wyndham because everybody else should, and they really probably should. So that kind of brings me down to the Berger versus Neiman versus Matsuyama, and I like Berger for consistency. It's the first tournament of the event. You want to get some money on the board.
Couldn't agree more. So one and done. If I just select anyone, that's a win because I forget every single time I do a one and done. It's just, I don't know how I always forget to make my pick. But assuming that I remember, Berger's nice because I'm, like you said, I'm really excited to get rid of him, but he's still a good player. It's not like I'm wasting Rahm or JT or Morikawa, someone that I know that I want. And in a field like this, I didn't want to reach too far and go like Griot or Piercy. To me, that's a little unnecessary. So Berger, obviously Sanjay makes a lot of sense, and I wouldn't fault anyone for going there. You could make an argument, though, that you'll have better opportunities to use him, whereas Berger, I'm not sure that you will.
Yeah, great. Look, Sungjae's in great form, but I think that Sungjae could really take a step forward this year and win a couple of events, maybe even a major. So I don't think we need to. I'm right along the lines there with you. So let's go to our hot takes. Last week, my hot take, I got eaten alive by COVID. I think we all probably have a little bit mentally or physically. Yes, I've bet on
hot take. I don't remember it.
Yeah, it was Xander Schauffele, having a COVID hangover, and it just didn't pan out. He ended up scoring 121 points. He dusted Patrick Cantlay in terms of price. He dusted him on Sunday in terms of results. It was just an all-around bad week in terms of my hot take on Xander Schauffele. I had him outside of the top 20. He came in third or something like that. So, yeah, bye-bye. But your hot take, you got one right for us. Harris English did win. We didn't like it, but you won.
Sort of. All right, we're gonna get this. This one's gonna be a little more specific, so I can't accidentally get it right. Chat. First of all, what we're gonna do? We got a minute left here. Just one more time, I'm gonna say we are pushing. We're at 48,100 subscribers. We are almost there. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button for us. We appreciate it. I've told the people because the NBA show they pump up those likes. I told them the golf show knows what's up. We got a strong crew here, a loyal crew, so we are gonna do our part, and we appreciate you guys. My hot take is going to be JT Poston. I want to dig in here for a second, and it's going to be, I'm not going to get crazy. He is 8-1 to come in the top 10, and I love that bet. I think that's a lot of value on a guy. He had a stretch where he lost 10 straight weeks with the irons, and he was absolutely abysmal this summer. Found the form, though. He has gained with the approach in 5 of 6, and that is the key because this is a guy that is a world-class putter. He's gained 4 out of 5 on the green. 5 out of 6 with the approach. Now, the form hasn't been there, but he's a winner of Wyndham. I like that correlation. I mentioned that with Snedeker. JT Poston can get in the mix here. It's a big risk because of the form, but he's flipped the irons, and I think this is the time to buy. It's going to be, sub 5% ownership on a guy that has some ability.
And he talked about his Masters miscut, saying that he felt like he went in a little bit too hyped up. And, that can happen with these guys. Listen, I know that when I'm excited to go play a golf course, it's likely that I'm shanking my first tee shot. I mean, I'm not a professional golfer, but I can understand the mental strength or lack thereof for somebody like Poston, who's from the area. He's not from, he's not from Augusta, but he's from the area, from the Southeast. I'm sure he was really excited to play. So I don't really look at that one. The RSM Classic does concern me a little bit, but good bounce back spot for Poston, obviously. Like you said, world-class putter. So nothing bad to bet at there. And for me, I'm going back and using a top 10 because he doesn't have one on the PGA Tour. It's Doug Ghim. He doesn't have a top 10 on the PGA Tour. You're killing me with that right now. This guy was one of the best players in college. I feel like the Sony Open, he has transcended his game from last year to the point where his irons look like they're actually really good. And that's what we thought he was when he was coming out of college. So this is a great course for him to really mitigate his off the tee game, which is not that good. He doesn't hit it long, nor does he hit it accurate. So this is a course that he can get away with it. The rough isn't that long. Everyone else is missing the fairway anyway. So Doug Ghim, top 10. This is the week, and it's the last time I'm using it because it's going to happen.
There we go. Two opportunities. We're going to put them on the board here. We've done it. Sony Open, everyone. First full field of the year. Let's do it. Good luck, everyone. We've got plenty of time still to get those lineups in. So we will see you guys soon enough. And obviously, me and Jason will be back next Wednesday for another tournament. Good luck. Let's get some screenshots. Start the year off right. Take care, guys. See you soon. I like this music. The lizard would listen to this before he attacks the city or whatever he does. Climbs on the buildings. So he's just a giant lizard?
Yes, well,